So thank you for having me give this presentation today about COPRI and our active members' needs when it comes to climate change and how we're looking at these our infrastructure and at a different time frame, as Dan mentioned. So COPRI, for those of you who aren't aware, it's Coasts, Oceans, Ports, Rivers Institute, created a little bit after SEI and the Geo Institute, created in 2000. And it's a much smaller institute when it comes to the number of members. And the main focus areas of COPRI members are the coastal engineering side, ports and harbors, and ports and harbors both along the coast, so deep water ports, or those interior ports that are along the waterways that are very much smaller. Offshore engineering and those needs, and then the waterways engineering community, which isn't just locks and dams, but a whole smorgasbord of ways that we try to keep our rivers in place from the point of view of navigation, flood control, and then in some areas, water supply. So since we're focusing on standards and guidelines, COPRI doesn't have that many formal standards or manuals of practice. So I'm focusing just on the ones that are actually being looked at actively. And I think, Terry, you had mentioned that you're part of this team that's going to be meeting with the Navy. Is that true?
Yes, as are, I think, a few others on this call.
Yes. So the Piers and Wharves standard, it just builds off of ASCE 7, but it's very specific to piers and wharves. And it is looking at determining loads, load combinations, and load factors for mooring, berthing, and wave and current forces. So we are now working with the U.S. Navy. I think, I have October, but there is a workshop. I think it's next week, and I am not going to be able to attend. I am involved in, I will be in DC, but not at the Naval Academy. But taking a look at the U.S. Navy's needs in looking at climate resiliency and performance-based design standards, and how the Navy can use this, the work already done with the standard, but also look at what the needs are going into the future, and ultimately perhaps incorporating the standard by reference in the unified facilities criteria that they use. So our group with ports and harbors, we have a sea level change task committee. They're just starting work on a publication, and what they're wanting to do is do something more systematic when it comes to estimating and including sea level change when it comes to marine and coastal projects. And a lot of practitioners are really looking for guidance when it comes to this, because they know that there are changes occurring, but many are having to do work now and can't wait for something that is more formalized and gone through a consensus process. So this is something that really is in need. On the coastal side, there's no new pubs or modifications to existing publications in the works. But right now, COPRI is working with the Army Corps, looking at updating and or replacing their coastal engineering manual. And the Coastal Council of COPRI is starting to work on a plan with the Corps for that. So that may be in the works within the next year or two. And the Waterways Engineering Group, which I am more active in, has no publications in the works, but there is a subcommittee that's beginning work on development of a tool that allow practitioners to more easily develop benefit cost ratios for FEMA and other infrastructure projects, be it the Corps or whoever requires that in the planning side of things, to make the practicing engineers work a little bit easier. So here's a list of standards, guidelines. Some are actual standards and manuals of practice from a formal standpoint. And then I added guidance just to give those who don't work in this area a flavor for the different types of structures and the different aspects that those that design these structures have to look at from maybe a 30 to 100-year window. So seismic design of piers and wharves was actually talked about at our NOAA ASCE workshop in February. But marine facilities such as ports and harbor structures, the mooring of ships at these facilities, small craft harbors, which are quite a bit different, dry dock facilities. So again, mooring, berthing, and repair of vessels, underwater investigations, a standard manual of practice, tsunami loads and effects, channel training works, so that's in the inland nav, the waterway side, spar platforms, that's on the offshore side, coastal infrastructure, and of course the concern with sea level rise, prediction, risks, and solution, tideless seas, coastal processes and tideless seas. So some of these are actually just short articles that may provide some guidance to those that work in these very small niche areas. measured and predicted wave forces on offshore platforms, storm loadings and on and capacities of offshore platforms, hydraulic design of labyrinth weirs, so maybe thinking along the BWRI connection there, locks, dams, and channels in inland navigation, sedimentation engineering, and ship channel design and operation. So lots of different aspects. All of these different types of infrastructure have different loadings and different requirements, but I think that many of them look at SEI 7, so ASCE 7 for some guidance to start the ball rolling, because some of these specialty infrastructure types don't have a standard of practice or a manual of practice or any formal guidelines written. So any type of guidance is looked at as valuable by those that practice in these areas. So last on the list, I wanted to just put together a short wish list from practitioners. And so from the waterways and ports and harbor side, more information on precipitation and snowmelt, river discharge, velocity, and river stages are important. Flooding and inundation from the coastal offshore, and then our coastal ports and harbors. Sea level rise is critical in the understandings of what's going to happen in the future. Storm surge, wave height and amplitude, tides, ocean currents, and coastal flooding and wind. And in the bottom, from if you want to know what from my communication with practitioners who are members of COPRI, a bunch of them really are clamoring for Atlas 15 from NOAA. So I know that's very, very brief, but I did have, I'm going to stop sharing unless there's questions on this, because I do have some questions that are going to be discussed at that workshop. I don't know if there's interest in finding out what those specific elements are, but I'm going to stop sharing and then pull that up.
While you're doing that, Norma Jean, I'll just make a couple comments. If you're talking about the NAVFAC, I think Ming Yi might be leading it at the Naval Academy. I think Don Scott's going to be there. Remind me, who else from this group is going to be on there? I know Don's going to be there. There's several people from ASCE are involved. Mari's going to be there. Yeah.
Good.
So, so we're counting on them to collect all the intel, et cetera. But if you've got a slide or two that you want to show, that's perfectly fine.
Well, I wanted to actually kind of let the folks that are here at this meeting understand that because of that workshop that was held in early this year, there has been now a different federal agency that is going to be having a discussion at a similar workshop. And I think that what was discussed at the NOAA ASCE workshop has informed that discussion, because when I read potential discussion questions, and this is from Tom Chase, I don't know who developed it, it may be one of you on this call, it really did have a lot of, I think that some of these potential discussion questions come directly out of discussions that were held at that workshop, the NOAA ASCE workshop. So I think that this is a great example of how information can be transferred from one group to another because of connectivity between organizations and between people. So just taking a look briefly at what this list of questions, and maybe I may be actually giving some of the information here that's on these 2 pages may be developed by someone that's on this call. I just don't know where it came from. But there's some general questions that will be on risk categories. So the categories that are used in ASCE 7, but that may have to be massaged for Navy waterfront facilities. Also, the time frame. So is it 25, 50, 75, 100 years? The climate scenario, the target's sea surface temperature, and if your target is 3 degrees C, what are the considerations? Structural safety and life cycle costs. Wind hazards. I know that we're not really focusing on wind here, but should tropical storms be included in the design of piers and wharves? Wind speed and mooring load. And then coastal flooding. So coastal flooding and the scale, the supplement that's out there provides a scaling factor or multiplier to take into consideration on stationarity. So there are discussion that discussion point is adding that the Canadian design codes have updated risk maps. Compound flooding. So I just put in red things that I've heard that I remember that was discussed at the ASCE NOAA workshop, and how that workshop is definitely informing what as a starting point anyway, what the discussion questions are going to be. And it'll be interesting to see what goes on and what is actually decided to be the most critical things when it comes to Navy waterfront facilities and climate change. So with that, I'm going to open it up for questions and hand it back to Dan.
All right, thank you, Norma Jean. Yeah, I think we've got time for a couple questions. Megan, I see you got your hand up.
Yes, Norma Jean, and maybe this is something that you don't know yet, but I would be really interested in hearing if y'all know when is the date by which we would need to get you information to be considered. I think you had said specifically that y'all were working on the apologies on the Piers one right now. The Piers standard?
Yes. Oh goodness, I just realized I was trying to stop sharing and I never did share that document. I was running my cursor up and down and y'all didn't see any of that, did you?
We did not, but I think we were able to follow along.
Can you forward that to us, Norma Jean? Can you just send that along with your slides?
Yes, I will.
Okay, because I'm a little concerned about time too.
Okay.
I know where Megan's going. This is an ongoing discussion that we're having with NOAA, which is and I think if I can share maybe a little bit, basically the message I think that has been handed down from the NOAA leadership is that if we want NOAA programs to be tweaked, realigned, et cetera, they need programmatic deadlines. They need to know when this information is needed, what form it needs to be in, because NOAA can't just create bespoke data sets. We have to they have to make some programmatic changes. So this is going to be a theme that's going to come up again, I think, when we're talking about Inspire and a variety of things going forward, is to the degree that we can get more specific about what data is needed, when it's going to fit into a process, what it's going to support, that provides NOAA with the internal information they need to set priorities. So I'm assuming that there'll be some information will come out of the workshop next week. But Don, Mari, others, Norma Jean, anybody that's at that meeting, anytime we're talking about this, understanding these timetables is going to be really key. Okay.
Gotcha. And that's why I just peeled off the ones that were active or maybe activating soon. And Piers and Wharves is the one that's the one.
Right. And we've had some exchanges already with Maine.
Deadline.
Yeah.
I don't believe that standard has a rolling deadline that is a set time frame, set number of years, like ASCE 7 does.
Right.
Well,
maybe speaking.
No, I actually, Norma Jean, even knowing that is helpful, because if it is where we could be even more useful to y'all as you're trying to set the course, we're happy to engage too. We just need to understand, like Dan was saying, what do you need by when?
Yeah,
when
I can verify that this does not have a hard and fast deadline quickly and let y'all know.
Okay, that sounds great. Joe Pica.
Yeah, I just wanted to re-emphasize that, knowing when you need it, but also even if we don't do it today, but with a little bit of research, we might get around to it in the next iteration. That's useful too. So it's not just what we can produce today, but if we need to do a little bit of R&D towards that next improvement of when the next window would be, it's prioritizing both investments, what we can do to meet the needs today, and then R&D towards meeting the needs in the near future.
Right, that sounds good.
So giving you kind of like our timeline would be helpful to you in order for you to put your resources where they need to be.
Right.
Correct.
And what we're learning with ASCE 7 is there are things that we could probably make available to affect this cycle, and that's like the near-term low-hanging fruit. And then there are probably some research questions that would inform the next iteration. And so at some point or another, and we're kind of leaning into the second half of this discussion, I think we're going to have to find a way to try to bring some coherence to this. That may be a next challenge for the task force, is to kind of think through how this might all work. But I very much appreciate your comments, Norma Jean, and I think we probably should move on. If folks have additional questions for Norma Jean, you know how to get a hold of her, but reach out to Megan or I. We'll make sure that we get the information flow going. So thank you again, Norma Jean.